Hello there.
You know what I've come for. This is the way.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Hello and welcome back to the Podawakens. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and we're going to be talking Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 6, the epic finale to the mini-series called Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm coming to you from Salt Lake City, so that's why my background is looking a little like a hotel behind me. So that's where we're going to be discussing this at. I stayed up just story time, I guess, before we get into the main parts of this episode. As I was traveling, I landed around 1 a.m. Mountain Time, which is 3 a.m. Eastern, which is right when the episode dropped. So I downloaded it as soon as we landed, started watching a little bit in the shuttle to the hotel, but had a little bit of a chatty driver, so I had to stop for a bit. But once we got back to the actual hotel, I stayed up, watching it till like 3:30 Mountain Time, and then I went to bed and woke up just still thinking about this episode because, spoiler alert, I really, really enjoyed this episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we're going to get into why. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff to cover, so we're going to just jump into it now here. But we're talking Part 6, which is directed by Deborah Chow, story by Stuart Beattie, and Joby Harold and Andrew Stanton. The teleplay was by Joby Harold, Andrew Stanton, and Hossein Amini. That was June 22nd, 2022. It premiered on Disney Plus. This is actually the fastest I've ever done one of these recaps. Synopsis is the action-packed special event finale. We're going classic Disney Plus, WandaVision-esque synopsis, right? That's what it is. And I say WandaVision because it'd be like the events of WandaVision ends. It's like the finale description of WandaVision if you haven't watched that. But we kind of start off right away here with Reva on Tatooine looking for Luke and, looking for Owen Lars and trying to find Luke. And she wants to, get revenge on Anakin Skywalker by taking out his kid. And we'll get to what happens with that later because it kind of introduces us to that. And then we kind of go right back to Vader pursuing Kenobi and the path in the Star Destroyer. So I guess it's hard to believe this stuff is happening at the same time. It's science fiction, science fantasy. You can do whatever. But she gets there like pretty darn quick from when they left her that she goes, I guess it all depends on where Tatooine is in the relevance of Jabim, right? Because Obi-Wan's going to get there pretty quick as well after his battle with Darth Vader. But, the Grand Inquisitor is telling Darth Vader it's not worth it, right? It is not worth going and just taking out Kenobi. We have a whole bunch of Force sensitives here because Kenobi is going to split off. He's going to get into his own ship. He's going to separate from the group, and that's going to allow the path to escape because the Vader, of course, is still just so eaten alive by his revenge for Obi-Wan that he is gonna take down one Jedi instead of all these Force sensitive kids that they would usually take out. And we'll see where he ends up with that at the end. But he fights he lands on this, Obi-Wan lands on this planet, and Leia slipped in Lola. They have this great conversation about how Lola is helpful, you know. And Obi-Wan kind of mentions like, "Oh, I wish I could have that right now," you know, that bit of hope. And Leia slipped it in there, so that made him smile a bit, and lands on like this like rocky-esque planet, like lots of towering spires of rocks. I thought it looked pretty cool. Some people said it looked, it's just rocks, but I thought it was pretty great looking, especially for this fight and what it'll lead to. But so he's going to fight Vader alone on this planet. Vader's going to fly down in his shuttle, and Obi-Wan's waiting for him. And what I like about this is kind of how it mirrors, right? Obi-Wan was on another planet earlier this show in episode 3, part 3. And when Vader arrives, Obi-Wan runs. This time there's no more running. Obi-Wan is sitting here waiting for Vader to come get him. And I like that, we're really starting to see the Obi-Wan that we kind of thought, I wouldn't even say thought we were going to see, because I feel like we kind of knew he was going to be this broken Obi-Wan first. But I think the way I would probably word it is we are now seeing closer to the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan from A New Hope. So he's going to fight against Vader here. He even does his usual prequel stance, with the two fingers pointed out, the blade close to his head. And I love the way that they use the lightsabers and the Force in this. We have a part where Obi-Wan's going to force push Vader. We have them really hacking at each other again. We have some, Vader flinging rocks at him and actually getting the high ground. I at first thought that was going to be some sort of reference to it, and it could have came across real corny if he's like, "Don't try it, Obi-Wan. I have the high ground." It could have worked. It depends on how they deliver it. But instead, he's like, "All right, I have the high ground." So he knows Obi-Wan's not going to attempt it. So he just buries him with the rocks. He's not expecting Obi-Wan to be able to stop the rocks. He does recognize that Obi-Wan's strength has returned. He says, "Your strength has returned, but your weakness remains." And his weakness is, I guess, what, if I was putting myself in Vader's shoes, is the light side of the Force, and believing that there is good in Vader and that he is not strong enough to kill Vader is what I assume is what his weakness. But such a great line delivery too, that if this is really just the re-speecher tech and not anything else, then I would be amazed. But Obi-Wan's actually going to cut Vader's helmet in half, and we're going to see Hayden Christensen as Anakin playing Darth Vader here. Playing Anakin Skywalker, who is Vader here. And we actually get both. We get both, him playing Anakin and him playing Vader here. But Vader thought he had won. He buried him. He's walking back, and we kind of get another mirror of part 3, right? When Obi-Wan ran away and he thought, "Okay, I'm free." And then Vader's right behind him. And you have this same sort of thing where Vader is walking away back to his ship, and then Obi-Wan just, bam, right there, sneaks up on him. And we also see him lift that whole bunch of rocks and just hurl them at Vader. Sorry. We see him pick up these all these rocks and just force push them into Vader, which is just amazing. And just the way he's beating down Vader at this point, before he even cuts off the helmet, he's beating up his voice box. He's cutting the back of his cape. He's just absolutely kicking Darth Vader's butt. And I think George Lucas had said in the past that Obi-Wan was stronger than Vader. And we see that again here. And what I love about this is that Obi-Wan never actually loses to Vader. His closest time is in that part 3, right? But in episode 3, he defeats Vader. In A New Hope, he's going to, in this show anyway, he defeats Vader. And in A New Hope, while Vader gets, I guess, Obi-Wan out of the picture, Obi-Wan still wins that, right? He says, if you strike me down, I will become stronger than you can ever imagine. He becomes one with the Force. He's able to guide Luke still. After all of this, he's going to help take down that Death Star by telling Luke to just use the Force. And he always ones up Vader. I love that about Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is my favorite Jedi in the Skywalker saga. And glad to see him here, just absolutely back to full power, wrecking Anakin. And this is where, again, I think we can say that line from A New Hope makes a lot of sense, right? When I left, I was the apprentice, but now I'm the master. He gets humbled again here, and that's what I was kind of talking about last week. He's going to get humbled again here because we need to see that Obi-Wan is still his master. And he even calls him master, right? When he buries him, he says, sorry, master, or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? He completely, goodbye, master, or something like that. Completely, that's Anakin still. There's still Anakin in there, no matter how much Anakin is going to say this when the mask is completely split. And Obi-Wan just says, Anakin. And I love Vader's line here and Hayden's delivery. Anakin is gone. I am what remains. And Obi-Wan, tears in his eyes. This is Ewan McGregor's like best performance as Obi-Wan, by the way. It's this episode in particular, but this show, I think, definitely overall. He says, I'm sorry, Anakin, for all of it. And this line, this is the beautiful of Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader is this next line here of, I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. And we get like a little smirk from Darth Vader here. And what you're also seeing in this scene here is when Obi-Wan's calling him Anakin, there's kind of like a blue tint. Obi-Wan's blue lightsaber is kind of illuminating the side of his face for Anakin. And that's showing that Anakin is still in there. But when he says this line, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did, there's no more blue light. It's the red lightsaber just illuminating that side of his face. The smirk from Vader is so sinister. This is truly, right here, he's going to say this, then my friend is truly dead. And when he walks away from him, he says, goodbye, Darth. And I loved this line, and I loved this line because it's a great callback to A New Hope. When Vader says that line of, I was the apprentice, now I'm the master, right? Obi-Wan responds to him by saying what? He says, only a master of evil, Darth. He calls him Darth. Doesn't call him Anakin. And of course, this is retcon, right? These are all retcons because originally Darth Vader was just his name, right? When George wrote A New Hope, don't let him fool you. None of this stuff was planned out, right? None of this stuff was planned. He wrote A New Hope with Darth Vader as the name Darth Vader. People will keep saying the Vader means father in German and stuff. It's Vater, it's not Vader. And I think in Dutch, I'm not even sure if it's fully Vader like that, but it's completely different. That wasn't planned, So him calling him Darth is, and people are always like, well, that's weird because now they made Darth a title, right? He retcons this, right? Originally, Darth Vader was just his name, but then he makes every Sith a Darth, right? Darth Sidious, Darth Tyrannus, Darth Maul, on and on and on, even to the expanded universe of Darth Revan, and, Darth Malak, right? All of these Darths. But Obi-Wan calls him this because he's saying, all right, what else are you going to call him? He could have said goodbye, Vader, I guess. But I like him saying Darth because if we take into account that the Darth is just a Sith Lord title now, he's pretty much saying you're not even like named, right? It'd be like saying goodbye, Mister, right? I kind of like that. Goodbye, Darth. And it's just a great callback to A New Hope. And also this makes even more sense to what he says. It's not just from a certain point of view BS that he says to Luke now. He says, Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father. And he says that in A New Hope to Luke Skywalker, and now we know that this isn't just something he came up with to justify not telling him the truth. He honestly believes this, and he believes it because he hears it straight from the horse's mouth. Anakin says, I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. He's taking onus of that death of Anakin Skywalker and as Darth Vader. So when Obi-Wan is saying that, it's not just some BS he made up to say, well, it's true from a certain point of view. He is going to still say that line in, Empire or Return of the Jedi. But he is able to say honestly. It's not just from a certain point of view. He honestly believes this, again, because Vader tells him himself, right? And I think Vader is probably correct in that. Look, the whole Jedi did fail Anakin. But, you can say about, like, why didn't they just give him rank of master, right? Well, let's not forget in Attack of the Clones, as a Padawan still, before he's even a Jedi Knight, he's going to destroy all the Tuskens for killing his mother, even the women and the children, right? That's red flags right there for Darth Vader. Those are just red flags right there. So there is something that he was susceptible to during this whole thing. It's not Obi-Wan's fault. It's not even Qui-Gon's fault. It's not Yoda's fault. It's none of their fault. Anakin is ultimately responsible for the decisions he makes, which does make this true that Darth Vader killed Anakin Skywalker, or rather Anakin Skywalker succumbed to the dark side all on his own. He's seeing visions of Padme dying. Well, guess what? He wasn't even supposed to have attachments, right? Because even if people say, well, the Jedi having attachments, not having attachments is what led him down this path too. Well, he then would have always had this problem, right? If he had attachment, maybe you could say he would have saw his mother more and maybe would have kept her alive and he wouldn't go down this dark path that eventually leads to where he is. But if he started getting visions of Padme's death again, he would still turn to Palpatine, I think. I fully believe that. So it ultimately is on him. And Obi-Wan can kind of forgive himself now. And I think that's why we do see a turn in the later half of this episode, is because he now knows for sure Anakin is dead and it's not Obi-Wan's fault. It's not his fault anymore. And while he'll say that line to Luke of Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father, he no longer had guilt associated with that anymore. So that was kind of my take on it. It's just a really great scene. I watched it twice already. It's just a really fantastic scene. And also what makes this scene is the mixing of Hayden Christensen and James Earl Jones' voices. Sometimes you hear the James Earl Jones, sometimes you hear the Hayden Christensen. And I think Hayden Christensen's best performance is Vader and Anakin Skywalker, no doubt, is from this. But I think even in the prequels now, if you watch them, what I'd heard before, just from online stuff or other podcasts, I'm not sure, but that the reason Hayden was delivering some of the lines that people think oddly, the prequels, some of those choppy sentences, is because he was trying to speak in the same sort of cadence or line delivery of Darth Vader. Because it wouldn't make sense if Anakin is talking in a different way and then gets the suit on and is just all of a sudden speaking differently. So that was kind of his bridge of it. So when and I hear that here when he says, this line delivery of, I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. I can hear that in James Earl Jones and I can hear that in Hayden Christensen. It's because of his delivery. He stresses the certain words, right? The certain syllables in the words that makes it sound like, okay, if we put a James Earl Jones filter on it, it sounds like Darth Vader. So I think we can kind of see that from this now, that might be a true story. I don't know, just something that has been around before that I wanted to point out. But this is fantastic, by the way. And this is also like only 26 minutes into the show. I thought we were almost done. I was like, man, that was a quick episode. And then I look at the time and I'm only halfway through at this point. And I was like, geez, that's awesome. But yeah, convinced Anakin cannot be saved. Obi-Wan's going to leave Vader behind. And we get Vader just calling for Obi-Wan, which is just a fantastic moment. This is the highlight of the whole show, I think. I really do think that. This is not just because of the fight, but this delivery of the lines, the mixing of the voices, Obi-Wan full at peak force ability again, and him finally being able to have closure to that Anakin situation. It definitely changes the way I look at the originals. If you watch Revenge of the Sith and then watch A New Hope, you're like, geez, he defeats Darth Vader, and then he's going to kind of lose to him here, but he's going to come back stronger, and that's it. And now we just have this great written, back and forth between them that is excellently acted and produced. I don't know. It was goosebumps. And also, I think what I wanted to say with this too is, I thought I had this in my notes. No, I can't think of what it is. Maybe I lost my spot there. Anyway, phenomenal. Back at the farm, this kind of intercuts here with Reva going to Owen's farm and is fought off by Owen and Beru. Keep seeing a lot of memes that say, like, okay, when those stormtroopers came for them in episode 4, they took out a few, because they did do a lot of they did pretty good. They did pretty good with taking Reva down a peg or two. Luke is going to escape. He never sees the lightsaber actually lit. So I know some people were going to be worried about that. And she uses her force powers when he's running up on a hill and knocks him down, and ignites her lightsaber, and she just has flashbacks. She doesn't see Luke anymore. She sees herself laying there. And she knew she could not do what Anakin had done to her. And, at first she tells Obi-Wan later that is her failure. Right? But it's not really a failure, he says. He says you did them honor for her fallen, Jedi Padawans, her fellow younglings. Obi-Wan, is going to welcome her back from the dark side, pretty much. I love this scene here because it again shows how welcoming and forgiving the light side of the Force can be, and how Obi-Wan had not given up on her. He says, pretty much toss that lightsaber aside and start a new path. And that's what I assume she'll do. There's rumors of her getting a spinoff, and maybe that's the case. I just don't know how exciting a show just about Reva can be. I guess former Inquisitor doing something else could be fun, but I feel like we're at a point now where we have a lot of content between episodes 3 and 4 that I kind of want some new eras soon. So we'll see how that turns out if that happens. Back on Alderaan, though, Leia is, more willing for her duty. She's not running away. She's putting on, Obi-Wan gave her a holster, and she's got the holster on. It's cute. And she thinks maybe another cousin is coming to visit her, but it's Obi-Wan coming, and he brings Lola back to her. And this scene, I think, is the second highlight of the episode to me. And what I think it really works is, Obi-Wan's happy here. We totally see this is Alec Guinness Obi-Wan at this point. Completely confident in his own abilities. He's happy. He's laughing at Leia's joke, right, where she says, I think you like, what are you going to do next? And he says, I don't know. What should I do? And she says, sleep. He lets out a hearty chuckle. And he is also going to tell her he does know her parents. And he had kind of mentioned, right, or at least in what was it, part 3, right, that he had known Padme. But here he's going to give a little information of Anakin as well. Here's his wording here. You are wise, discerning, and kind-hearted. These are qualities that came from your mother. You are also passionate, fearless, forthright, and these are gifts from your father. Both were exceptional people who bore an exceptional daughter. I wish I could tell you more. And love the delivery of this. You can tell this means a lot to Obi-Wan. And Leia getting any nugget of information from her birth parents is something that is helping her. And she says, don't worry about it. And that I wish I could tell you more, I'm assuming, is I wish I could tell you have a brother. I wish I could tell you you're strong in the Force. Like, I wish I could tell you more adventures I had with your parents, but I can't. And she says, will I ever see you again? Which is like a line right from The Phantom Menace when Anakin asked that to his mother. So I like that. And he says, we must be careful. No one must know. And I'm going to kind of rail against some of the complaint people again here. And I know I do this a lot, but people, like I said last week, were, episode 2 came out, right? And they're like, well, the Inquisitor's dead, so they're just breaking canon now. And then episode 5, we find out, okay, the Inquisitor's fine, right? This was a long con by Vader. Then we get, her knowing his name is Obi-Wan or knowing anything about him. Well, why wasn't her message personalized in A New Hope? And we got that answer here. He says we must be careful. No one must know, that they know each other. So that's why her message is more of a call to action of you served my father in the Clone Wars, blah, 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 blah. And I think it worked even without this line here, but I think this line now makes it undeniable that the writers knew what they were doing, and just not all the questions are going to be answered in the first 2 episodes. We have to wait until we get to the finale before we can judge on if there's unanswered questions. So Obi-Wan also tells Bail, hey, if you ever need me again, you know where to find me. Which is also a reference to this A New Hope message, but also a reference to Bail in Rogue One, who pretty much says, like, I have a Jedi friend that we can call, right? And then that's what sends Leia on the course of sending the message to Obi-Wan. And, they do see each other again, just briefly. She sees him in the Death Star right before he gets struck down. He becomes one with the Force. And now this, again, just makes so much more sense why she would name her son Ben. She barely knew Ben before we knew this show, right? So I really like that she named her kid Ben for Ben Solo, and it's after Ben and after this show pretty much, right? This is a great example, like a great experience she had with Ben and Obi-Wan Kenobi. So Upon his return to Tatooine, he assures Owen that Luke should grow up as a regular boy. And again, this is part of, okay, there's no longer all on the kids as A New Hope. It's Obi-Wan is fully, again, confident in himself. He knows he can kick Vader's butt. He knows he can do this. He is going to take a step back, not be overbearing, and when it's time, maybe he'll train him, but really he thinks he can do it himself. Like he tells Bail, if you need me, holler at me. I'll join the fight. He's in a totally different state of mind than he was in part 1 of this show, and this is character growth. And he was weak in the Force back then, and now he is no longer afraid. He is fully himself. He even puts the Jedi robes back on. And Owen says, hey, why don't you come meet Luke? And we get the hello there, right? I'm glad we only got it the one time. I think it works perfectly here. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting him to say something about Luke, and then I get hit with the hello there. So they showed amazing restraint of not using it until now. Okay, and then also what he's wearing is not just his Jedi robes, but he's wearing like almost an exact suit layout of Marvel Comics Star Wars issue 15, where he's got the like brown sleeveless part of the robe, and then also has the goggles hanging off. And this is a reference to a toy from Sideshow Collectibles, a Mythos statue of Ben Kenobi that comic was a reference to, the cover of the comic. So that's pretty rad. They did their research. He gives Luke the Skyhopper toy, and he's got his inner peace. As he's riding off, he finally sees Qui-Gon Jinn. And this is something I talked about last week that I wanted in this show is Qui-Gon, at least the voice. And it was great to see. It was just great to see him. Fantastic. Liam Neeson looked great. Took you long enough, right? Is what he says. Qui-Gon says to him. And we have confirmation he's now a full Force ghost now. And apparently this happens in a short story and from a certain point of view book that he was able to materialize around this year in the canon. So that doesn't break anything. I saw some people saying that it breaks that. But we also get confirmation I was always here, Obi-Wan. You just weren't ready to see. So anytime he was calling out to Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon's probably right next to him saying, Obi-Wan, I'm here. But Obi-Wan couldn't see him, couldn't hear him. He had to fully get back to himself, right? Get over the heartache, get over the guilt, and become Obi-Wan Kenobi again. And then on Mustafar, we have Vader fully suited back up again, giving up his search for Obi-Wan because the Emperor is starting to question some stuff here. He says, you let a whole thing go, right, for one Jedi. And is it, what's so special about him? And of course he knows. He's poking and prodding him. He's shaming him for it. That enough that Vader says Obi-Wan means nothing. And I believe this is truly where he is fully Darth Vader. He's been Darth Vader this whole time, but fully committed to the Emperor. He's no longer going to be making these trips out just to see Obi-Wan. Or if Obi-Wan crossed his path, he's not going to take the bait, I don't think, going on from here. I think part of Vader thinks that he has closure on it a bit. And we finally get the Imperial March. It hit like a ton of bricks here. We also got the Force theme and Leia's theme and stuff like that in this part of the episode. So that was wonderful. That was great. I don't know. Overall, just really fantastic fantastic show. Do I think we're getting more? Maybe. I kind of don't want more, honestly, of Obi-Wan. I think a Vader series could be cool, but I think this series ended perfectly. I think it sets up A New Hope perfectly with all these references. I don't think we need any more Obi-Wan between episodes 3 and 4, but we probably will. This show was a huge hit viewership wise, and Ewan McGregor is totally down for it. He keeps saying that. Kathleen Kennedy is totally down for it. So I'm sure we might, but I don't think they can cross paths again. I really don't think that would be beneficial. So I wonder what he would actually do. Maybe some smaller stories around Tatooine, but I don't know. This was just so good by itself. I don't know if I'd want to mess with it at all. I think I would just leave it alone and say that was that. But yeah, the character growth in this, I don't know. This whole show was just, I really enjoyed every episode, but the last 2 episodes have been fantastic, answering questions we had, setting up stuff to perfectly blend in with the original trilogy. And like I said, when you go back and watch A New Hope now, it has totally different meaning. So I saw some people complaining that maybe we didn't get a clear reference to what Vader meant by Obi-Wan once thought as you did. But I think it's pretty clear. When Obi-Wan's talking and the light is blue in Anakin's face and he's calling him Anakin, that's where he's thinking the good is still in him. Until Vader tells him, I'm not your failure. I killed Anakin, not you. And he says, oh, my friend is truly dead. That's when he realizes there's no more good in Anakin Skywalker or in Darth Vader. So it's not like explicitly hit over the head, but that's what I would say would still make sense. I think Vader could, of course, see that as, okay, Obi-Wan still thinks there's good in me because he keeps trying to appeal. I'm sorry, Anakin. I'm so sorry. And Obi-Wan was right. Obi-Wan was right. We see Luke bring Vader back from the edge, so there was good in him. And of course, that shows Padme was right from the end of Revenge of the Sith. But, Obi-Wan does the best he can until Vader clearly tells him no. And Obi-Wan gave him tons of opportunities to turn his back. So, again, just a beautiful scene. I can't stop talking about this dynamic between the two characters, and this scene is just absolutely fantastic. I can't believe we got that. I just can't believe we got that. Again, Hayden Christensen, fantastic. Yeah, I'm glad to see the fans have welcomed him back into, the fandom. Giving him, he got so much crap after Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And what I also like is that he had better material, I still think, in this show. So he did have some great lines to work with. Like, seriously, this confrontation is just pitch perfect lines, line delivery, sound effects. All that stuff is just fantastic. My only complaint would be a little bit of the shaky cam from Deborah Chow, because you want to see the cool moves that they do. And I was able, this fight didn't bother me as much as some of the other fights did, but I saw some others complaining about that from this episode. But it didn't bother me as much this one as it did maybe in other episodes. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited. We have a long gap now until Andor at the end of August that we'll be getting Andor. So really excited to see where that goes. But we didn't even really talk about it, but we got Palpatine in this too. So we got Palpatine, Qui-Gon Jinn, Leia, Luke, Anakin, Vader, Obi-Wan, Quinlan Voss reference in one of the episodes. I mean, this show connected so many threads and is essential viewing now. I would say, like, if I'm doing a rewatch, go episode 1, episode 2, maybe a few Clone Wars episodes, episode 3, and then go into the rest of the order. I think Solo would be first. Then you go maybe Obi-Wan, Rogue One, A New Hope, Empire, Return of the Jedi, Mando, Book of Boba Fett, 7, 8, 9. I think those are like essential. And then probably some Rebels in there between 3 and 4 as well. And then we're getting Andor, so that'll be fitting in before Rogue One. So rewatch would be a lot if you're going to add. I mean, you can't sit down and add, I don't think, the full Clone Wars in the rewatch, but shows like Obi-Wan that are 6 episodes, absolutely. I could fit that in, watch that in like 2 days and continue the rewatch. 3 a day or whatever instead of movies. But I'm just in love with this show. I don't know if it's my favorite Disney Plus show. I really do love Mandalorian, but Mandalorian is a continuation show, so this is the only limited series we've had so far from Star Wars, and, well, I guess Book of Boba Fett. But I would put this above that. And, if you listen to my Book of Boba Fett recaps with Logan, we were very much into that show. But this is more of a standalone than even Book of Boba Fett, right? Book of Boba Fett takes a turn halfway through where you're getting Mandalorian and Grogu and the characters back. Oh, this is like completely separate. You can watch this, like I said, right after a Revenge of the Sith and go right into A New Hope and miss nothing and just go and watch just like this Obi-Wan Darth Vader conflict going through there. Maybe we'll talk more Obi-Wan in another episode. But I really did enjoy this. I might try to get Logan or Jack's point of view on this finale because this is just a great finale. All right, if you want to give us a follow, you can follow us on like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Podawakens is where we all are. podawakens@gmail.com. It's where you can hit us up with email feedback if you want to give us your thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi. But I think that's about it. So I'm probably going to take a little break from the pod before coming out with something else. Like I said, I might get more people on to talk Obi-Wan, but the next show isn't until Andor at the end of August. So maybe I can think of some cool content ideas in between then. But for now, this is goodbye. Just keep an eye on the feed, stay subscribed, and you'll get all of our episodes. So have a great rest of your week. Enjoy watching Obi-Wan multiple times and just enjoy Star Wars.
I have spoken.
It's over, Anakin!